All right, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome. This is lesson 3.1, sloped intercept form. My main goal for you guys today is to be able to create the slope intercept form by looking at a graph, and also to be able to equate and to be able to go the other way, looking at the graph and create the equation. You guys should have done this last year in 8th grade. We're still not doing bell work yet, FYI. I will get to it again. It's just trying to matter putting everything together going forward. We're going to be mathematical practice 2 and 8. We are going to start graphing linear and quadratic functions, and so intercepts, and then interpret the slope. This one is a big one. We're going to start doing. You guys need to be able to do this, okay? Interpreting the slope and the rate of change and the intersect of a linear model, okay? It's very important. Chapter 3.3, lesson 3, the one we just did, we talked about finding the slope, the rate of change. Now we're going to actually take the slope and create the slope intercept form of the equation. On your notes, please, if you do not have the notes, please go to Canvas and print them out. Okay, hopefully you've accessed this video through Canvas. If you have not, please do that. Just because on Canvas is the homework also. The homework will also be in the comments below. But I just want to make sure you guys get the notes, and then please have your books open to page 171 to follow along and to see more examples. All right, the slope intercept form. In relation to the M is the slope, the B is the y-intercept. What I want to make sure is that you guys can actually graph it. Now, do not correlate this formula with this graph because these two are actually not the same thing. Because if you were to think about this y-intercept on here, if the y-intercept is a positive 6, that means it's going to be somewhere up here. My slope is 2. Remember, your slope is rise over run. And in this case, it'd be 2 over 1. So I'm going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. So my graph would look something like this. All right, this is what I want you to be able to do. Not necessarily use a graphing calculator, but to create the slope intercept form and to graph it automatically. All right, write the equation in slope intercept form. So let's begin with this one. Y equals 1/4 x. Okay, because remember it's y equals mx plus b. It's in your notes. Please make sure you keep referring to it. And I'm going to do a plus, but my slope is a -1. We don't actually write it like this, so please make sure you guys rewrite it to y equals 1/4 x minus 1. So I know, do I need to go into a graphing calculator like Desmos and actually graph it? I don't need to, because I can tell this right here is going to give me all the information I need. For example, my y-intercept is what? It's going to be -1, and then my slope is 1 over 4. So I know I'm rising up 1 and going over 4, rising up 1, going over 4. There's my graph, there are my dots, and my graph. Wow, that was horrible. Let me redo that. It's a horrible line. Change the color and thickness. So my line's going to go from here. Did it again. Something like that. Okay? So that way I know, even though I didn't cross, I'm supposed to cross at -1, and then you get the drift how it goes out. Okay? There's one thing I'm not good at unless I have a ruler, is to actually graph on a graphing calculator. All right, your guys' turn. Write an equation of the line. So write the equation first, and then give me the slope intercept. All right, so on this one, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you guys have everything set up. All right, your equation is going to be y, ooh, that was tricky. Y equals, and the slope is -1/2 x. I'm going to redo that, x equals -1/2 x. My y-intercept is a +3. So in this one, it's y equals m, which is -3x, plus -8. All right, which would be rewritten to -3x minus 8. So I know on these graphs, on this one here, I'm going to start at 3 up. So I go 3 up is my y-intercept. On this graph over here, -8 is, so it's going to be right here. And then from there, you just do your slope. So these are both negative. So since they're negative, I know that they're going to have an angle going down. And so remember on the rise over run that the top part, it technically should look like this. -1/2, and then this one will be -3/1, because it's the rise that will go up and down. So since this is -1, I'm going down 1/2, down 1/2, and I'll do it one more time, down 1/2. So I went and grabbed my ruler to do a better job at this. There's my line. This one right here, -8. So if I'm going -8, my rise is I'm going to go 3 down. So I'm going to have to go a little backwards on this. Instead of going, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Here, 1, 2, 3. Now how I know this is because I'm counting backwards in my head. If I go rise over 1, down 3, 1, 2, 3, over 1. So that's how I did that. Okay, now if I went down 3/1 down here, I'd be somewhere down here, and then my point would be down there. But hopefully you guys understand and get the drift. Draw my line. There you go. Okay, there's my slope-intercept form, and then here's what it actually looks like. All right, next. Graph this equation, then state the slope and the y-intercept form. So, solve for y to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So, there are 2 ways to do this. Okay, first and foremost, for what I want you guys to do is technically you could graph it. All right, so if I go back to this equation, it says 5x plus 4y equals 8. So on Desmos, I jumped on there, 5x plus 4y equals 8. I've already graphed it. So what I can tell from this point is my slope-intercept is going to be 2. Now, is this a positive or a negative graph? All right, this is actually a negative slope. What slope is this? This is negative because remember it's going down. We always do the graph going left to right, and that's a negative slope. So going from here, I know that I'm going to have a y. It's going to equal, and then the slope is negative, and my x-intercept again is 2, and that's positive. So I know I'm going to end up with something x, okay, plus 2. Now the question is do I want to take the time and do the rate of change? I'll just simply solve it out. So what I mean by that is I'm going to move the x to this side. Remember in standard form, this is standard, ax plus by equals c, you just rewrite it. So when I move that over, I'm going to get 4y equals negative, and there's my negative that I found there, 5x plus 8. And then you would do what? Isolate the y, so you're going to divide everything by 4, divide that by 4, this by 4, and that by 4. And you'd end up with y equals -5/4x, you can't reduce that, plus 2. So ladies and gentlemen, there is my slope. Okay, so what is the graph on this? I know from graphing it that it was 2, and that my slope now is 5 down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 over 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 1 point, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's our 2 points. And then, ladies and gentlemen, you can graph it. Here you go. So, hopefully everybody, you guys all understand this concept, okay? You can graph it to get the y-intercept. But when I'm looking at this graph, I realized one very important thing. Okay, I don't see, remember on Desmos, you can click and drag. So if you want to find a point on here, I don't see another whole number set up. So see, this is like, it's not a whole number. It's a negative 1.60. So it's not like a perfect coordinate point. Not until you get down to, where is the first one at? Oh, it's way down there. Oh, it's right here. This point is 4, -3, okay? Which you technically could, which is what we got, okay? So what you want to do is make sure you guys do the same setup and make sure that your process is going to be exactly the same, all right? I counted that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, good. Okay, so if you guys have any questions about that, please make sure you ask and come see me in class. But knowing your initial setup when you graph it is okay, but sometimes it's hard to actually read what the slope is. All right, So ladies and gentlemen, your turn. Go ahead and graph both of these if you want to. If you graph it, you'll get the y-intercept right away, but you may not get the slope right away. So go ahead and do that. All right, so hopefully you guys pause the video when I step out. Whoops, let me turn that back on, sorry. Okay, so here's 3x minus 4y equals 12, and then here's the negative 2x plus 5. So I got a purple one and a black, okay? So the purple one is first. Purple one's first on the board. If I look at my graph, okay, I know the purple one, the x-axis, the y-intercept is negative 3. And then I know the y-intercept on this one is 2. So negative 3 is the first graph. The cool thing about these, looking at both of these, is what kind of slope are on both of these. The slopes on both of these are actually going up, so I know they're both going to be positive. So that's the good sign. All right, so on here, I know I'm going to have a y equals, and it's going to be negative 3. So I know this is going to be negative 3, there's going to be an x, and then this is going to be a positive number. Remember, this one's going to be y equals, and it's going to be, here's the x, and it's going to be what again? Plus 2. Okay, so I know I'm going to end up with 2 on that end. Now I just got to find out what goes in front of the x, and in order to do that, for me, I'm going to solve these equations real quick. So, negative 3x to this side, actually let me rewrite on the bottom, like we always have done. Negative 3x, okay, and then this one here is a negative 2x. 2x, and this is negative 3x. Remember, you can't do anything with this, okay, so I'm going to drop this down. So it's going to be negative 4y equals negative 3x plus 12, all right? And then this one here, okay, these cancel out, so it's going to be 5y equals negative 2x, and then that's a plus 10. All right, you can see I'm already setting them up in the y equals mx plus b format. Now all you got to do is do what? Divide this equation by negative 4. So I'm going to concentrate just on the left for right now. Divide that by negative 4, this by negative 4, and that by negative 4. Remember, what you're doing to one side of the equation, you got to do it to everything. So in this instance, you got to take the negativity with you. It's a y equals negative 3 over 4. So negative and a negative, ladies and gentlemen, is what? A positive. 3 over 4x. And then this is going to be minus 3 because 12 and 1/3. So take a wild guess. There's our minus 3. There's our x. And we came up with a positive 3 over 4. This one here, divided by 5. Okay, now I get y equals negative 2 over 5x plus 2. For me, oh, I made the mistake. Look at that. Hopefully y'all caught that in the video. That's a plus, ding dong. Plus, plus, not a negative. So hopefully you guys, by the time I get to that, you'd have been realized, wait a second. See? So for me, the reason I talk these out sometimes is why? When we looked at the graph, what I tell you we were going to have? A positive slope. And yet, when I did this equation, I went too fast, like I do sometimes, and I came up with a negative, and I knew, wait a second, it was supposed to be positive, so that's when I realized my mistake, right? So hopefully you guys see that, and you recognize your mistakes as well. So that's adding 2x to both sides. And then there's our slope, 2 over 5x, and here's my slope over here, 3 over 4x. Could I graph them? I'm not going to graph it on here, but you guys understand and get the concepts. All right, graph y equals negative 7. All right, so on this one, ladies and gentlemen, if I were to graph it, what does y equals negative 7 means? That means for every point. So if I had 0, negative 7. Because remember, your points are x, y. Okay? If I had a 3, negative 7. All this doing is I'm going 0 and I'm going down to negative 7. So I'm going to actually have a horizontal line. So what is my y-intercept? My y-intercept is negative 7. What is my slope? My slope is 0. Okay, because this is a horizontal line. If you guys remember what we did from last chapter, horizontal is 0 slope. If it's a vertical line, remember a vertical line is undefined. That would be, a vertical line would be if it was x equals a number. Okay, like x equals 3. Over on 3, we would have a vertical line that would pass through the number 3, like that. So that's what this is. And then that is undefined slope. So please make sure you know the difference between the two. When in doubt, draw a picture. All right. So on these, get out of here. All right, what I want to make sure you guys do on number 4, on the 4th example, we are now going to be on page 173. So when it comes to this 4th example, what I want to make sure you guys can do is start to actually write an equation from a graph that is shown. So right away we know on this graph that our b function is going to be -3, right? So we know the ending, if it's y equals mx plus b, if this is a -3, I know the tail end of my graph is going to be -3x, and it's going to be y equals, and that this slope, is this slope going to be positive or negative? It's going to be a positive slope, right? Because it's going up. So let's see what we got. So I know this one right here says +3, so it can't be that one. This one is +3, so it can't be that one because our slope is negative. And so from looking here, I got a -2x and a +2x. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what kind of slope is this? Positive or negative? It's positive. Did I actually have to find the slope? No, I didn't. So please make sure you guys use a simple form like that. All right, your turn. All right, use troubleshooting, ladies and gentlemen. Same thing, what is the y-intercept? It's at this point, it's going to be, we know it's a y equals, and is this slope positive? It's positive, so I can put a little positive there if you want. And it's going to be x minus 1. I do know that because the x-intercept's at -1. I got a positive slope. So I got a +4 and a +4, so it's not these two. And then I have -1, correct? Ooh, and both of these slopes are positive. So now we got to figure out the rise over run. So 1/4, 1 up, 4 over, be right there. If I did the other one, it'd be 4 up. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 over. Ladies and gentlemen, which one is the most appropriate answer? It is A. Please make sure you guys can troubleshoot stuff like that pretty quickly. All right, real world example on your notes. This will be almost on the 3rd page, I believe. Okay, on the 3rd page on the back side, you guys will have the ideal burning, the ideal maximum heart rate for 25-year-old exercising is this rate. For every 5 years older than 25, that ideal rate drops for 3 beats per minute. Write the linear equation. So when I'm looking at this, you got to write down your key information. So we know that our target here, we're going to start our equation at 117. Now we don't know what we're finding, so we got y equals. Okay, but I know on a graph, if I were to graph it, I'd start at 117. And we have our variable x. Now the tricky part is for every 5 years older than 25, the ideal rate drops 3 beats per minute. So if I know it drops, that's a negative. So I do know that's a negative. And if it's going to be 3 beats every 5 years, I believe that should be y equals 3/5x plus 117. And the answer is yes. Well, they got R for the rate. But it is y equals -3/5a plus 117. Now here's this part B. Graph the equation. Then state the slope and the y-intercept. Okay? So when you guys graph this equation, let's graph it. I already have it set up. Turn those two off. Y, so I'll turn this one on. It is blue. Hey, where is it? Remember, if you can't find it, what do? Zoom out. Please do that on your calculators as well. All right. So we zoom out, we're out pretty far. What is the y-intercept? Well, the y-intercept is going to be what our equation is set up, is at 117, and our slope is a -3/5x, or -3/5, not 3/5x. Our slope is -3/5. So we know that this slope equals -3/5, and the y-intercept equals 117. Now, for the last part of this equation, is find the ideal maximum heart rate for a 55-year-old person exercising to burn fat. So we know that the graph, you're supposed to be how old? 25 when you start out with this formula. So if we know we're 25 years old and now we're looking for a 55-year-old, the difference in years is going to be what? 30 years. So that's the tricky part. So what you actually want to do now is you can go back to your equation, and this is the cool thing about Desmos, okay? With Desmos, you can actually click on here and you can draw on this graph. So I'm looking for 30. And you see that point right there. For after 30 years, your heart rate's going to be, and I had it and I lost it right there, 99. So ladies and gentlemen, my assumption is that if it's 30 years, Y is going to equal 99. But what you can do is you can actually plug it into the formula. So let's figure that out. So it's Y equals the slope, which is negative 3 over 5x, okay? And then it's plus 117. So if I'm looking for somebody that's 30 years, I would actually plug it into this equation. Because remember, the baseline is a 25-year-old. Then, on your calculator, you put this out. 3 times 30 is actually 9, all right? And then 90, or it's not 9. Yeah, 3 times 3 is 9, but this would be 90 over 5. And I don't have my calculator with me. But if I were to figure out the math, ladies and gentlemen, here it is right here. 3 over, you would come up with, 3 over 30, 3 times 30 is 90, divided by 5, must be 18. So it's negative 18 plus 117, what is your answer? 99. Now, you could do the long way and figure out the math, but what else could you have done? If you have the option of Desmos, is like I said, on this graph, you would draw your finger on it, or you draw it through until you get on 30, and you would see your answer prop up to be 99. Hopefully you guys can see that. It's easier to do it on Desmos. When we get to AZ Merit time, I would want you guys to be able to put this equation in and do the same thing. That's why I want you guys to get an external mouse, because it's easier with an external mouse to actually click on the line and just follow along instead of clicking on with your finger and trying to drag it. It's more difficult to do on these calculators. All right, last thing. Here's a fundraiser. Please, ladies and gentlemen, give me the equation, graph it, state the slope and y-intercept, find the total profit. All right, so on this one, ladies and gentlemen, your equation is actually going to be, let's write it down as we see it. It's going to be y equals, I know I'm going with a linear equation. They're selling sandwiches for $5 each. So I know that's going to be 5x. But they bought $1,160 worth of ingredients. So before they actually make a profit, they're in the hole. So if they didn't sell any sandwiches, what would be their total loss? Negative 1,160. Hopefully you guys can understand that equation, how I set it up. Here's the equation. What is the y-intercept? Well, the y-intercept is negative 1,160. And what is the slope? The slope is 5, positive 5. So for every one they sell, the rise is going to be 5 up over 1. Find the total profit if 1,400 sandwiches are sold. So you can put this in a new equation. Minus, okay, then you would type this out in the calculator. 5 times 1,400. Get that answer, subtract 1,160 because that's how much you spent. You get your profit. I am, ladies and gentlemen, going to attempt to do this on Desmos. All right, so here's my equation. Same thing, I put it in already. Y equals 5n minus 1160. Here it is right here. And it said, how many sandwiches did I sell? All right, 1,400. So on my Desmos here, I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit because I can see my scale. Still at 500. All right, might be able to do it now. Okay, let's see if I can get this thing to work. So my y function, oh, I'm going to have to keep going here, aren't I? I'm going to have to go quite a ways up. So if I know my x value is 1,400, I'm going to have to keep zooming out here. All right, so 5,000, let me see where I'm at. Ooh, that's too much. All right, so my x value over 9, 14. Oh, there it is. Stop. There's my profit. 5,800 and... Let's see if I can get it. Stop. 5,840. Now, would it be easier to do it in the calculator? Probably, but I didn't have one available, so I couldn't do that. My X value was 1,400 and my profit. So hopefully you guys understand how to do that. All right, if you don't, remember for that one, my profit of 5,840, it's not too bad. Okay, but remember this is my X coordinate, that's my Y. That's how you figured it out. So the goal, ladies and gentlemen, remember, is to be able to take an equation and create it from a graph. And then to create a graph and make an equation to go back and forth. Last year you may have learned the functionality of it, but now I want you to be able to put it into real practice. Both in an equation format and a real world as well. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Get ready for the quiz or test we'll have. If you have any questions or need any tutoring, remember I'm here every day after school. Come see me if you need me. Other than that, have a great day.